All right. Our next writer, Ray Ziemer. Did I get it right, Ray? Yes. All right. He is a lifelong writer of prose and poetry and is currently finishing a young adult novel called The Ghost of Jamie McVeigh. He teaches writing part-time at the College of DuPage. Over the years, he has enjoyed working with several writing groups. He is pleased to have become acquainted with the Batavia Writing Group, led by Frank Rutledge, who's here tonight. And he learned about that through Waterline Writer's website. Thanks for the plug, Ray. Born and bred on Chicago's South Side, he has made his home in DuPage County for the last 30-some years. Presently lives on the west branch of the DuPage River in Warrenville with his wife, extended family, which usually includes a 91-year-old father-in-law, several dogs and cats, and grown sons who also contribute to the family construction business. Ray, please.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for Waterline Writers for giving me the opportunity to read tonight. I'd like to share 3 pieces. I guess you could call them my city poems. Each of them in some way grew from my roots on the South Side. So this first one started as an elegy for a friend that I lost about a year ago, I guess. Gary Dubell. He was this wild-eyed, long-haired, guitar-banging, hard-drinking guy that you all probably know somebody like that. He was my friend. And this is called Riding with Gary. With Gary, it was always a wild ride. Life flying by in crazy, hysterical, star-spinning delight of joyriding teens on a hot summer night. Arms reaching frenzied shouts and barreling down and bottoming out. Dirty work gone in the rearview mirror, drywall dust pasted on sweat-damp skin, all pain puffed away in cigarette smoke, care washed away by whiskey's icy burn, and whites and wine. All night we breathed the melodied air billowing and strummed and sang and swelled with twisted harmonies, laughed with drunken ecstasy, crazy music making, wild raucous joy, a horrible din, impossibly bad, guitars and voices hopelessly out of tune. Speeding country lanes alive with clattering gravel through woods a blur, blasting radio tunes as we danced with danger, careened around corners, cool wind in our streaming hair, city lights sparkling. We cruised the neighborhood low and slow with catcalls and commentary and Gary's wry analysis of whatever you got. Paupers or princes, he'd been both in his time after all. He could and would talk to anybody about anything, but maybe not specifics, because conspiracies abound and the fix is in. And who could deny it after checking his record? We were all part of the plot at one time, like the cops who rousted him and curbed that beater, the Blue Demon, with its hand-painted hood, dented fenders and smudgy windows, and the carpet rolled up on the roof like a corpse. Connoisseur of crazy. He knew it when he saw it, called it when he caught it. But somebody always found him a space in the parking lot and a couch, at least for a night or a month or more. Because he was irresistible, irrepressible, irreplaceable. You could hitch a ride for a while with him, then hop off or be dropped off, and somebody else would scramble inside for the next leg of the journey, along for the wild lunatic ride, as long as they could handle the heat, the hilarity, the hell-bent dash, and try to remember that Gary's maniacal ride could only ever end in a fiery crash. Thank you. In sort of the same vein, this poem is for any or all of us who ever gave a piece of our hearts to a city dog. called Eddie Hopped the Fence. Eddie slipped through the unlatched gate and vanished into the still summer night. We worried and wept all through the dark of crying sirens and plaintive trains, while he roamed the streets and zigzagged, sniffing down alleyways. But then, round about daybreak, the milkman spotted him trotting along the boulevard near Rockwell Street and called him over. Tongue lolling, Eddie rode at the open doorway as the milkman made his rounds and finally dropped him off with a gallon of Bowman's and a pint of cream. What cries of joy and sighs of relief when his wet black nose poked through the gate. But Daddy gave him a licking and a stern talking to. Bad dog. Eddie learned to cower and when to slink away, to lower his ears and tuck that corkscrew tail between his legs. But I saw his lip curl at the scolding finger. Now he'd gotten a taste of it, inhaled and savored the stink of rotten garbage and piss-marked hydrants, the sweet, intoxicating scent of a bitch in heat and the salivating, mindless, pure mounting. Once he'd tracked a cat and treed a squirrel and snarling bluffed a German shepherd, gnawed a ham bone, crushed a chicken wing, and raised a leg on every signpost, tree, and light pole between Western Avenue and Marquette Park, dodged a bus, deked a cop, and stalked the paper boy. Who wouldn't want to go and be a city dog? And so it went all summer. Eddie hopped the fence, or squeezed through the gap at a rusty wired gate post and somehow slipped away when the city called. He ran the streets and alleys and wore the bottoms off his paws. And so he'd set up on Marquette Boulevard and await the milk trucks rattle to the curb. And Daddy'd give him a whooping and shake a finger in his face. Bad dog. One time he was gone for days and days. We walked the city blocks in dread, rode all around Lithuanian Plaza calling his name. Until one joyful day, with a bark in the gangway, he wagged, collar gone, but around his neck a stranger's frayed rope chewed through. Lucky dog. He came home limping, footpads bloody from the concrete walks and cindered alleys. And Daddy stood with a rolled-up newspaper. But no, we hugged his neck. Poor thing! Instead, we washed the ragged paws and fed him a biscuit. And Grandma snuck him a fat hunk of rump roast. So next time, Eddie came limping home, and every time after, and sat bedraggled with sore paw raised. Pathetic. So he saved himself a licking with a treat to top it off. But one time, didn't he get careless and we caught him switching paws? Clever dog. But then he didn't come home, and we walked and rode and searched the prairies. Daddy left the gate unlatched, and Grandma put aside a pork chop just in case. And we called and cried, and he never came home, not ever. The milkman came with his eyes cast down and shook his head slowly. No. City dog. I grew up pretty much in the shadow of the old convent of the mother house of the convent of the Sisters of St. Casimir on Marquette Road. And, like childhood things, we kind of tend to take them for granted. It was always there. And on the other hand, for me, growing up Protestant, all things Catholic were just filled with mystery for me. So we heard the news last year. I heard they were closing St. Casimir's, the convent, silent and brooding, the window-pocked escarpment that ever loomed over the low, flat landscape of Marquette Manor, from prairie to parish, city square to slum. 100 years of black-shod feet shuffle into silence, sisters in voluminous folds of rustling habit, pale, perfect faces wimpled, worn out from the yowling births and the howling trauma and the violent demise of the neighborhood under the Holy Cross. No more little blonde Marias learning Lithuanian. No more Aves in the dark garden's cool shadows. No rosaries recited by ancient virgins in the murky grotto where cold water trickled silvery and the sisters' whispered prayers hung over the shrine like fog. Once the sacred grove of perfect trees bore fruit, sweet slobbery pears and mouth-puckering apples. Once the garden's night-crawler earth yielded a savory prize when, deep in the dusk, we gathered a watermelon, green, round, luscious, cracked it wide in malicious glee, but the sweet red meat glistened with a jagged hex, and we passed round a bottle to ward off the curse. Once we wondered mysteries and horrors when pray-the-lords tramped past our bungalow. Were they shaven to the white of their skulls under the cowls, those holy wives of Christ? Breasts bound to their pallid bodies? Womanhood maimed with no maidenly vestige? Or did they bear the babies of lecherous priests in secret cellars of the mother house? Now, gangster bangers and crack whores roam the grounds, and they've tagged the Lugan monument, cracked the chapel's amber glass, and care not a bit if the secrets of St. Casimir's sword, the lily, and the crown are lost to history. Moth-white dust settles over the empty rooms and Mother Maria's venerable bones. And a busload of brittle old nuns retreats to the suburbs, where they'll bide their slow time till the end of mystery. Thank you.